you know. And so he's had a change of
heart. That was good.
He's had a change of heart, and he's also had a change in his way of thinking. He is
grown up,
not kind of like that anymore.
Basically.
Well, he's got. Well, of course, people get out and they start working and earning money, and they go,
Yeah. Well, give me your last thought on Kavanaugh, because I got the congressman on the line. I'm going to bring him in. What do you got, Jimmy?
Oh, I'm sorry. If I was I have to say this. If I was a senator and Kavanaugh was up, my vote would have been no. But after what they did to him, I have to say yes, because they're trying to change the rule of law.
Yeah.
And,
why no?
And what I don't like about the man is he's a statist, and he comes from that loony D.C. Court of Appeals, and I don't trust them people at all.
Yeah. Janice Daniels approach.
Yeah.
And I think he would uphold some things if things went to court for the Homeland Security and things like that. He would uphold the state side completely, and that's why I'm against. You know me, right. I'm a libertarian.
Yeah. You are. All right, well, great points, man. I appreciate it, Jimmy. Don't stay away so long next time. Call in more often.
Thanks, man.
I will. Have a good day.
You too. Take care. All right, Lynn, calling in, we've got 7th District Congressman Tim Walberg. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hello, sir.
Well, good afternoon. I guess this is the first Saturday of the month, so glad to be with you.
Yes, we're always glad to have you on board. Are you in Washington, or are you home?
No, we're home.
You're home right now, so you're missing out on all the Looney Tunes and craziness that's going on in D.C. right now.
That's amazing. America is America, but there are some parts of America think that they definitely don't have to abide by any rules of propriety that any of the rest of us do. When's the last time that you saw a conservative take over the U.S. Capitol, shut down committee hearings, attempt to do that, block streets, and shout obscenities?
Why then who do the Capitol Police report to?
The Capitol Police, of course, report to Congress.
There you go. So why is this happening? You're a congressman. You should be able to tell us this.
More importantly, they report to the Constitution, and they take the same oath of office in carrying out their functions as police officers to defend and protect, as I do to a great degree. So there's First Amendment liberties. When they cross the line, these people are arrested. I think the problem is when you take them into the D.C. court system, they get slapped with a $50 fine. They pay that. They're back out on the streets. And, of course, George Soros or somebody else is paying
that,
those fines.
Yeah. Well, $50 is $50. I don't like them in the quarters. I've been in the quarters of Congress, and I know I wasn't allowed to shout and yell.
Yeah, that does seem, Tim, just a little lack of decorum, free speech, whatever. At some point, I think you should be behaving and screaming at a senator, getting in their face, shoving your fingers at them,
threatening.
Like the way the two ladies accosted Jeff Flake in the elevator. To me, that seemed like assault, frankly, in my book.
Verbal assault.
Yeah.
The legal definition has to be followed, and since they didn't touch him, they have free speech, and sometimes free speech is ugly speech.
Yeah.
There are times when it crosses the line, and that's when the police have to deal with it. When they violate the rules, for instance, causing commotion in the committee room itself or in the House chambers, for instance, or Senate chambers, they're removed. But I tell you what, my respect for the Capitol Police is higher than it's ever been before. What they've had to put up with in the last 3 weeks or so is sad. But, the best way we end this is we beat them in the polls.
Yeah.
And that's where your listeners have to come to that conclusion, that we can talk a lot, we can go to meetings, we can write texts and emails and all that type of stuff, but in the end, in America, the only way to beat back a cause that is trying to directly change this great United States and its Constitution without even changing the Constitution is to beat them at the polls.
Yes, and so give us a quick update on you, Tim, because I've seen a couple of commercials from your nemesis here in the district. And how are you feeling right now? You feeling kind of confident? Not overly confident, obviously. You never want to do that. But how are you feeling? Because you get outside of Ann Arbor and Ypsi, so you get the feel of the bigger district as a whole. I don't know that your opponent does, honestly.
Yeah, we're out and about amongst everybody, whether it's high school classes for a opioid heroin abuse forum that we did in Adrian last week, the beginning of last week, or or whether it was at Manufacturing Day and in manufacturing sites all around my district, meeting with business people, the optimism out there is palpable amongst the general public. They're feeling good. I mean, just this last week, 134,000 jobs created last month. We go to a 3.7% unemployment rate last month. That's the best unemployment rate since 1969 when I graduated from high school, almost 50 years ago. And the optimism index is still climbing. The stock market is climbing. All of it says that things are going strong in this country. And in fact, people in their homes and their schools are more secure, safer than they have been for quite some time. Why? Because American principles are being followed. And then that's a good thing. So no, I feel a good optimism out, but I also am concerned that we're so optimistic that we'll think things are going so well that we don't have to go to the polls or get our other friends, neighbors, family members, church members, etc., to get to the polls and vote for American freedom and opportunity.
Yeah, because I tell you what, I common sense. And when you just look at the facts and the data, I don't see a blue wave. I just don't see it.
Why isn't there a red wave? Why are they saying we're going to lose Congressman?
It drives me insane to watch Jonah Goldberg go on Fox News this morning and say the Senate will probably pick up Republican seats, but we think the House is going to go blue or at least lose more seats to the Democrats. And I'm thinking to myself, in what universe are you guys in Washington living? Because out on the streets here in America, I don't see Democrats being blown up. Because you know what? They don't stand for anything except ugliness, hatred, and vitriol. I'm hoping that Americans are not like that.
Jonah has never been a strong fan of Trump.
Yeah.
So he's dealing with that. But statistically speaking, Jonah can be very accurate because the first midterm election after a new president comes in with both majorities in both houses, he loses on average 32 seats in the House.
Yeah.
We lose 23. We're in the minority, and Nancy Pelosi is Speaker, and President Trump loses his final 2 years of any significant impact and spends time looking at impeachment proceedings, for both him and probably Kavanaugh, and that's what goes on. So I appreciate Jonah Goldberg saying that. If he wakes up, the conservatives, the Republicans, the independents that voted for President Trump last time because they were tired of what was happening, the same old, and they wanted to see our nation strong again. They wanted to see our economy strong again. They wanted the world to listen to us as opposed to diffuse what we said. And that's all that's been happening now. So by rights, you're absolutely right. There should not be a problem in the world that not only would we keep our majorities, but we would pick up seats. But that isn't necessarily the case, and we have to make sure that's changed. When you have the total bashing of this administration and the efforts going on in Congress to do exactly what the people elected us to do, to reduce the unnecessary spending, to support our troops, to build a wall, to speak for Americanism, to cut taxes and grow the economy, to say to China, we aren't going to take it anymore, and oh, by the way, we're going to show you that we mean it. And we're doing that now, and we're seeing trade deals start to be cut that look real good, that will put us back in the driver's seat where we ought to be. All of that is taking place, but the media, of course, has been talking about everything else. And sadly, a lot of people are now so busy because of a good economy, they don't have time necessarily to read like you read.
Yeah.
And so that's why our voices have to be heard, but to our friends and neighbors saying, don't take this for granted. This could change overnight. You need to get to the polls.
Yep. You hit Ed.
You have a lot of agriculture in your constituency, right? In your district.
I do.
Is there any issue with tariffs?
Well, yeah, there is, and certain sectors of the ag community who have been hit the hardest. Dairy was one of those, and they're grateful for the most recent trade deal with Mexico and Canada. They're looking at that very positive now. But it was interesting talking to agricultural leaders and individual farmers in my district. Though they were very concerned, they were hoping that this trade negotiation, the tariffs, would end soon and end positively. Yet, I don't know how many of them said to me, we do know, though, that in order to get to what we need to get to for the long term, it's going to take some effort, some pain, and some time. And I was pleasantly surprised as I attended large ag group settings or met with individual farmers. That was the general tenor that was out there. It may hurt us. It may take us some time to bounce back, and some of our friends and neighbors, in fact, may go under. But we believe if we're going to turn it around, this is what's going to have to happen. Well, they're seeing it take place now, and hopefully it's come in time to save some of those who are the weakest, and they can continue in their agriculture efforts. The same in the metal forming industry. Our steel mills have been doing great because of these tariffs, pushing back on the dumping that came in from China and India and other places. But the metal forming companies were paying more for their parts and the product to build what they build. But they're seeing now that change take place, and so I think there's a general optimism that's coming. But a war always has some casualties. We just want to make sure that the least amount of casualties take place as possible, and that we never forget that in order to win this, we had to reverse some bad things that went on from both parties in administrations over the past number of years that walked up to the line that they had drawn, but never held the other nations, specifically China, the European Union, Asian communities, etc., responsible for what was in their trade deals. And now this president, this administration, and thankfully this Congress is holding their feet to the fire now and saying no farther.
So let me ask you, Tim, as you're speaking to the farmers out there, are they still supporting Stabenow this time around, or are they going to give John James a shot?
Well, it remains to be seen. Stabenow has so much money and is so ingrained in the ag community. The ag organizations are supporting her. Whether or not the individual farmers are remains to be seen. Yeah. I know a lot of them that aren't. I know a number of them in the dairy community are not going to support Debbie Stabenow.
Thank God.
I know some corn growers and soybean growers and cattlemen, etc., who are not going to support her personally, but their organizations are, and that concerns me.
Yeah, and let's call them out right here on the air, Tim. What are those organizations? What are those farm organizations that are supporting Debbie Stabenow merely because she's on the Ag Committee? You know, we can get John James put on the Ag Committee. It just takes a little effort, right, and a little time, but we can do it.
But remember this, one thing good. We saw with the election of Trump last time that while the unions, just like some of the associations, supported Hillary because they thought that's the way they had to go, and she would win, and so she would then protect them and help them. Individuals didn't, and to this day, I talk with many of my friends in the labor community who are bona fide card-carrying union members, yet they'll come up to me and say, hey, you supporting our guy? And when I say, who's your guy? They say, hey, the president, Trump, he's our guy. You support him, we support you. I think that's out there with a lot of farmers as well. And so John James just needs to get out there. Individual citizens need to support him. He's way behind on finances. What do you expect? The machines are out there supporting her, and she's been raising these funds all during this tenure. And yet, just like Trump, didn't have as much money as Hillary.
Yeah.
Yet Trump won, and that's why John James, who's an attractive candidate, who's sincere, who's articulate, who's passionate, I believe can win if we simply get behind him, regardless of what the polls are saying. And the other side's going to lie, too. You know, you asked about my opponent. You see her ad up there saying, in 20 years, I've raised the debt to $5 trillion. Now, first of all, I haven't been there 20 years. I'm only in my 5th term. That's 10 years. So she's not accurate on those counts, and she's certainly not accurate on the $5 trillion. That came from her former president that she supported so strongly.
Barack Obama. Yep, exactly. So let me ask you this then, Tim. Part 2 of the tax cuts, making our tax cut, people's tax cuts, permanent. Is that coming after the election?
We passed it in the House. It sits in the Senate.
Okay. So, and that goes right to the point. This is why we must get rid of Debbie Stabenow and give one more Republican vote to help pass these laws that you guys in the House are passing left and right. And yet the Senate can't do it because we don't have 60 votes.
Right.
You guys passed H.R. 38, right?
Pardon?
You guys passed